China defends sovereign ties with Venezuela, warns against U.S. moves in the Caribbean. Hey everyone, Johnny here, Don't Speak News. Well, this is coming from Press TV over in Iran, and China is saying that they're standing by their friend Venezuela, and as you can see, they're warning against U.S. moves in the Caribbean. So China says its partnership with Venezuela is sovereign and not directed at any third party, following reports that Caracas has asked allies for military equipment amid heightened tensions with the U.S. China's Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning said on Tuesday that cooperation between Beijing and Caracas does not target any third party and is not subject to disruption or influence from any third party. Mao made the remarks at a press briefing after being asked about reports that Venezuela is seeking missiles, drones, and other military equipment from China, Russia, and Iran, like we talked about yesterday, or the other day, last week, whatever it was, and Iran to deter any possible U.S. military aggression. Referring to the United States' recent military operations in the Caribbean, Mao said China stands against moves that undermine peace and stability in Latin America and the Caribbean and opposes unilateral and excessive enforcement operations against other countries' vessels. Yes, in other words, you shouldn't be shooting up um, so-called drug running boats when they could very well be fishing boats or any other, or just leisure boats. Not every boat you see in the Caribbean is a drug runner, but that's what the U.S. is treating them like. In fact, one of them, a boat from Colombia, they had their engine cover up in a sign of distress because their motor quit working. And the U.S. blew them out of the water anyway. So, but a couple of people survived that, and the U.S. returned them to Colombia. And that's how the story came out. But of course, the U.S. media doesn't really talk about it at all because they're told not to, or else. There's no free press in America. There never really has been. And especially now with Trump back in office. So China is defending their sovereign ties with Venezuela, and they're not going to let the U.S. or anyone else intimidate them out of it. And Russia keeps bringing in military equipment day after day. The planes keep landing. In Caracas, Iran too, China, they're all supplying them. So then we have more encirclement going on inside of Russia as we switch gears from the war in the Caribbean to the war in Ukraine. Russian lawmaker Alexei Zurlev said Maduro can get Oreshnik missiles. So look at that. Not only is Russia giving them air defenses, small arms, and other offensive weaponry, but Moscow is now thinking about supplying Venezuela with the Oreshnik missile system. Now, how true this is and how much smack talking this is up for debate. Because this could be just Russia talking smack and saying, well, we might do that, right? Not saying they're going to do that, but that Oreshnik missile system, as we already seen, is absolutely devastating. It absolutely wiped out a weapons plant inside of Ukraine last year and obliterated it into just dust. And they weren't using even conventional warheads. They were just using kinetic energy warheads. That's how fast and hard this thing comes down on its target. So that could be a problem for the United States. And then we have this. The armed forces of the Russian Federation continue to tighten the encirclement ring of the Ukrainian Armed Forces Group in the Kupiansk area, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense. And as an update to the city of Pokrovsk that Russia was surrounding, it says Russian invasion forces have captured around 85% of the city, with no signs of the Ukrainian counteroffensive in the north of the city changing things on the ground. Notably, there are no fighting, bombing, or droning videos, nor flag hoisting stunts in the center so far. And so Russia continues to win on the ground in Ukraine, and they're pressing their gains. And the cauldron just keeps getting tighter and tighter around the Ukrainian forces in the region. And we're going to talk about that right here with an article I put up on the 1st of November from Andrew Korybiko, who sends these to me and asks me to repost them, and sometimes I do, like this one. As Putin was once again extending an olive branch to Zelensky and Trump in his latest goodwill gesture because he truly doesn't want the conflict to drag on, nor to expand Russia's territorial claims, as would likely then happen, which is going to happen because the Club of Rome wants it that way. Anyway, Putin announced that more than 10,000 Ukrainian troops were encircled in Kupiansk, as I just talked to you about from Telegram. And Pokrovsk, with his Minister of Defense, soon adding Dmitrov near the ladder to the list. The Russian leader also proposed halting the fighting so that foreign journalists, including Ukrainian ones, can travel to the front to report on this. Putin suggested a mass surrender, just like early 2022 when the Azovstal standoff happened, but Zelensky seems uninterested, at least for now. So here's what it means. Number one, Russia continues to gain ground despite billions in Western aid for Ukraine. The Economist recently published a piece lobbying for Europe to fund Ukraine over the next 4 years, which they claim will cost taxpayers at least $390 billion. The article also reported that 100 to 110 billion was spent this year, the highest sum yet, for a total of 360 billion since 2022. That's probably an underestimate. Quite likely, or quite clearly, Western aid has not succeeded in pushing Russia back, only in decelerating its gains. Ukraine's encirclement therefore shows that no amount of money will inflict a strategic defeat for Russia. Indeed, it will not. And it's time that Europe starts facing the reality of all this. In fact, I think they're already starting to. China, for example, has started cutting Ukraine drone part supplies because they see the writing on the wall. And then the U.S. is beginning to reduce their troops that are stationed in Eastern Europe that could possibly help Ukraine. So the U.S., China, they're all pulling back from Ukraine because they're on the verge of defeat. And that's what it says here. The gravy train might end if Ukraine acknowledges this encirclement. So building upon the above, Zelensky and the commander-in-chief, Syrskyi, have denied these encirclements, most likely because they fear that the aforesaid gravy train might end or at least slow down if they order their forces to surrender. After all, the loss of thousands of troops and 3 encirclements over 3.5 years into the conflict is no small matter, which might make some Western officials reconsider funding Ukraine, since the victory that they were promised is no longer in sight. Number 3, Russia's capture of these 3 settlements would be a pretty big deal. Whether Ukrainian forces are eliminated or they surrender, Russia's capture of these 3 settlements would be a pretty big deal, especially Pokrovsk, since it's the gateway to the Dnipropetrovsk region, where Russian forces have already entered earlier this summer. Any continued advance along the unguarded plains beyond the aforesaid settlement could coerce Ukraine into complying with Russia's demands for peace, or prompt the U.S. into escalating to de-escalate, which I don't see that happening with the U.S. pulling their troops out of Eastern Europe, but we'll see. Putin prefers a swift political settlement over a protracted war of attrition. Contrary to what some have assessed, Putin doesn't want the conflict to drag on, nor does he want to expand Russia's territorial claims. Ergo, why he's called on Ukraine's encircled troops to surrender. He expects that this goodwill gesture could lead to Ukraine's withdrawal from the rest of the Donbass and then a swift political settlement that satisfies Russia's other goals. Zelensky wants to keep fighting for an earlier mentioned self-interested reasons, however, so it'll ultimately come down to what Trump wants. Then number 5, Trump must soon decide whether he wants to make this war his own. Trump considers the Ukrainian conflict to be Biden's war and insists it wouldn't have happened had he won the 2020 election. Yes, it would have. The powers that be would have told him to do it anyway. Yet he must soon decide whether he wants peace like he claims or if he's willing to make this war his own by indefinitely perpetuating it. Putin is giving him an off-ramp by calling on Ukraine's encircled troops to surrender as a means of reviving the frozen peace talks, so it's on Trump whether to pressure Zelensky into complying or accept his defiance with all that entails. So, the newfound encirclement of Ukrainian forces in those 3 settlements is therefore much more important than it might seem at first glance, given the insight that was just shared above. Putin is once again extending an olive branch to Zelensky and Trump in his latest goodwill gesture because he doesn't want the conflict to drag on, nor expand Russia's territorial claims, as then would likely happen. So that's what's probably going to happen, actually, at least according to the Club of Rome's plans. And of course, this is a slaughter of all the Slavic peoples in the region. That's what's happening on both sides. So the wars and rumors of wars continue. And the markets have been going crazy today, all in the red, as stocks close lower, hit by AI valuation concerns. NASDAQ drops 2% after Palantir earnings. I am seeing some news about crypto dropping like 250 billion, but I haven't seen that indicated here today. Bitcoin falls below 100,000 at one point for the first time since late June. I'm not seeing any big, if they had dropped that much, it should be headline news everywhere. But I'll keep my eyes open just in case. And that will be it for now. That's enough, right? Oh, there was one more report you guys probably want to know about. Hal Turner and his covert intel again in regards to the Middle East. Well, we talked about it yesterday. Over the weekend, this came up from Megatron on Telegram here, where the U.S. and Israel are preparing new attacks in Iraq and the region. And Iraq's defense minister was told by Pete Hegseth here in the U.S., and he told them not to think about getting involved in it. And so the defense minister of Iraq said, I had a brief phone call with the U.S. Secretary of War, and he warned me that an imminent operation will take place in the region. And his final warning to us is that the armed groups should not show any reaction, meaning the armed groups that support Iran that are inside of Iraq. So anyway, that's what Hal Turner was reporting, and we reported on it yesterday, and it didn't cost you a dime. So there you go. And that will be it for now. Don't forget, don'tspeaknews.com, home base for all that we do. We put a lot of stuff here that we can't report on anywhere else. In fact, there may be another report coming up very soon that fits that very same vein. We're going to talk about spiritual warfare. We're going to talk about other things that we can't speak about here on YouTube, at least not the way we want to. And so we'll be talking about it here on the website very soon. But anyway, all kinds of stories here like this one, like this one, like this one, and hundreds, thousands more. We're up to over 3,000 now. Stories, articles, videos here on don'tspeaknews.com. If you'd like to subscribe, there's a subscribe box at the bottom of every article. You'll get one pop-up while you're reading an article. And then also you can click on subscribe, contact Johnny right here. And then you can contact me at Don't Speak News at Proton Mail. And you can click in your email here and hit on subscribe, and you'll be notified every time I put up a new video or blog post. For channel support, we're listener supported only. Thanks once again for helping us so much last month. Without you guys, we really would not be here. That tab is right here, and all the links to supporters are there. And then Rumble, BitChute, Telegram, all the places to find us on the internet are right underneath this tab. All the links are right there. There's YouTube, Telegram, Don't Speak Health on Substack, BitChute, and Rumble. And that will be it for now. God bless, take care. Johnny Storm, Don't Speak News.